We're live, Steve.
Okay, great. Okay, the wonders of technology and human operators. Once the machine take over, we'll be okay. Okay, we'll get started. Hi, my name is Steve Blank. I'm the editor and publisher of Blank Slate Media, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our sit down with Nassau County Legislator Delia DeRiggi-Whitton, who is seeking a seventh term on the Democratic line in District 11 against John Stalzer, who is running on the Republican and Conservative line. We are now have a newly drawn district that is now comprised of Port Washington, Flower Hill, Roslyn Harbor, Seacliff, Glenwood Landing, and Glen Cove. Am I missing anything?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Always makes it exciting, these redistricting things. This is part of a series of interviews and debates with candidates running for office this November. I'd like to thank in advance the sponsor of this event and others, Northwell Health. And with that, I'd like to get in and get started. So let me start with what you see as the most important issues in running for the county legislature, for your district, and for the county.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure to speak with you. And I was lucky with the redistricting in the sense that my district really did not change. I think I'm one of the only legislators that had that fortune. I lost a small part of Port Washington just due to a population shift, but the majority of my district remained the same, and that helps because there are a number of projects that I'm in the middle of that I'd really like to see come to fruition. And my district basically encompasses, I surround Hempstead Harbor. So the idea of the environment and keeping as much out of the harbor and other water, is just so important to me. And that's been a major focus of the time that I've been in office. We recently just completed Manor Haven Boulevard, which was a $6 million project. We increased the drainage. We did all new catch basins. We did some rain gardens, as well as road narrowing, which helped with speeding and directing traffic. And I also just did the Baxter Pond. We redid the whole, all the pavers were taken up and replaced, and we cleaned up, put new benches in, new garbage receptacles, and that again also is a major project that we've been working on with the catch basin to keep any contaminants out of the pond and also Manhasset Bay. And also when you move down towards Seacliff, we did Scudder's Pond, which was actually the largest contaminant of Hempstead Harbor, believe it or not, from runoff. So we put in funding for various filters, and that's really helped take down the nitrogen levels in the harbor. And staying with Seacliff, we've just used ARPA funding, which was the only project in Nassau County that I know of so far that used ARPA funding, which is COVID relief funding, to sewer part of Seacliff, as well as we were able to reimburse homeowners and businesses the $7,500 fee that it cost to hook up, which was a big fee. So we were able to use ARPA money for all of that. And just real quick, coming up to Glen Cove, there's a beach called Crescent Beach, and it's been closed for 12 years. And I'm really been putting a lot of effort into this, along with different Glen Cove mayors. And we just were able to get 2 Helix filters installed, and we're very close to having the beaches reopen. We have to have the bacteria level down for 5 weeks. We had it down for 4 weeks this summer, or hoping by next summer, with a few other changes, we might have that beach reopened. So basically just continuing with a number of these different projects, which I have.
Let me ask you this from an environmental. So you're working on a lot of the runoff and water into the harbor, which is obviously a big issue. How well, how well is Nassau County prepared to deal with climate change
We
and the additional rain, large storms, which will impact us? Is what has been done, and is that enough?
Interesting that you asked that. I just left a press conference in my office this morning, which we hosted. And basically, there's a lot that still has to be done. There has been some improvements to, especially on the South Shore after Sandy. We really spent a lot of money on the 2 sewage treatment plants down there. We actually built a wall around them. We've also helped with Reynolds Channel, where we're diverting wastewater. I talk about sewers all the time. It's amazing. It's good for parties. But anyway, so we're diverting the wastewater out of Reynolds Channel. We have another new pipe going, connecting the barrier islands. But there's, as we're seeing now with these storms, which are due to climate change, they're coming more and more frequently and bringing more and more water to our island. And there is a great opportunity right now. Number one, I just showed that ARPA money can be used for water. That's the only capital funding that ARPA money can be used for is projects that pertain to water, because the virus is connected to our water system. So that's the only way we can use it. So we still have, I think it's $260 million sitting in an account that has not been allocated for, which really can be used for not only studies for our drainage issues, but possibly for outflow pipes that might need to be replaced. Because you could have a great drainage system, but if your outflow pipes fill up with water, then there's nowhere for the water to go, which is what I think is happening more and more. So I really encourage the administration to focus the ARPA funding as soon as possible and use it for something that will last, in my opinion, which would be our, improving our infrastructure.
Why hasn't that money been allocated? I mean, COVID is this money was appropriated several years ago.
That is driving me crazy, honestly, because if we don't have it allocated, it has to go back. And I can tell you, as a legislator who fought to get this money for Seacliff, it takes a while to get it and get it approved and get the forms filled out. So we need to really move. It needs to be a priority. And in my opinion, I haven't seen much to show that using that funding and getting it all out is a priority. It's been moving at a snail's pace for the last.
Is this an issue with the legislature or with the administration?
The administration. It's with the administration, and I understand. Whenever you have a change of administration, unfortunately, everyone that was in the prior administration was let go, pretty much. So now you have to get, the whole institutional knowledge is gone. So they had to have time to catch up. But again, with this time limit of us having to give the money back, in my opinion, this should be much bigger than some of the other things that I've seen the administration focus on, some other projects. However, there's also a tremendous amount of federal funding available now, which does not come along too often. Just that infrastructure bill that was approved. I see other states, we were just up in Maine and Vermont. They're using it for infrastructure. Even just the highways are all being paved with this funding. And I just feel at Nassau County, I haven't heard of many grants coming in. The DPW supposedly hired someone to focus on these grants, but I don't even know if that person was ever actually hired. We're really trying to get information from the administration, but they do not share it willingly. And I think, again, we need to focus on not only the outflow pipes, but having like a regular, I hear we only have one truck now that cleans out the pipes, which I can't even imagine. That's like the leaf pipe. But if we need more trucks, if we need a schedule so people can check online to see the last time their pipes were cleaned out, little things like that can really make a difference. These homeowners, especially on the South Shore, have really been through a lot. And the county has to really move up and catch on to technology and catch on to using, really seeking these funds. You have to be competitive to get the federal funding. And I haven't heard of anything coming in yet. So
now, I mean, the the legislature, the entire legislature, 19 seats, redistrict, are now up for election.
Mhm.
And what has been with redistricting, the last Republican majority actually kind of followed what the change in registered, the demographic changes and the registration changes. So right now, at least on paper, Democrats have an edge in something like 12 of the districts in terms of party registration.
Right.
So there's a possibility they could be a Democratic majority in the legislature if it holds to that. No guarantees given how the Democrats seem to underperform last year and the year before. Would that make a difference? Is that something that if the Democrats get control of the legislature, is that something, or, what would that be in a major area where we might expect to see change based on the focus of the majority?
100%. I know that I would be a strong voice with that, as well as a number of the other legislators. We just, again, had a press conference this morning, and I have Deborah Muley, who represents the Freeport Baldwin area. I mean, you've seen what they've been going through. It's a real crisis, and it's not something that, all right, occasionally Superstorm Sandy will come along, but now we're at a point where we know pretty much every year we're going to get hit with these storms, so it's not a surprise anymore, and we really need to be prepared for it and to be focused. And again, it's not easy to get funding sometimes, but it's available. And if other counties and other, even Suffolk is, in my opinion, doing a better job, we need to, we really need to focus on it. When right now, first of all, going back to what you said before, there's 100,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans in Nassau County. I hope, I would like to see us obviously pick up some seats, and maybe this is the way I live my life, which is not the best way sometimes, but I am really concerned because we are one seat away from the Republican, party having supermajority. They would, as you know, also control the executive branch. So redistricting is so complicated, and I've learned a lot about it recently. Sometimes the registered voters, you can't just go by that. It goes by performing voters. And I'm very concerned that when you really look at each race, that there is a possibility that the Republicans might have supermajority,
They could get a supermajority even. So that's a function of turnout, which last year, what would get Democrats out? Why are Democrats now? I mean, Republicans have the town of Hempstead, so they have more people whose jobs are tied to local government, and that's always a good motivator for people to go out and vote. What do the Democrats need to do in Nassau County to get people to come out and vote for them? Let me ask you a question. I was going to ask you this later, but might as well ask now. What's the difference between Democrats and Republicans in Nassau County? Because on a lot of issues, it's not that clear. So my question is, why would I vote the Democratic Party rather than the Republican Party?
Right. And what you're saying right now is really, it's true. Like this new group of voters, which I happen to have a lot of respect for, many of them are millennials, aren't even affiliating themselves with a party. And they're also basically looking at each candidate, like each either elected official or each person that's running for office. And I really think that they are smart in the sense that they're not easily convinced. Like you really have to show them that, I am so worried about the world we're leaving our kids. I mean, they all say that, this all the climate change and all started right around 1968. Well, that was the year I was born, So this is my lifetime legacy, is that the world is, just just not only an increasing in temperature, but the amount of plastic that's in the water and everything else. So it's not the type of legacy I want to leave my kids. And that's like their number one concern. They're also concerned about being able to afford a home. And I see it. My daughter just bought a home in Connecticut for $275,000, 3-bedroom, nice kitchen on a half acre, backing up to preserve. There's no way I can compete with that on Long Island. And kids are also worried about their idea of, healthcare. I don't know about you, but when I graduated college, I wasn't worried about healthcare. Now they're very concerned about the cost. So I think it has to be a party or a candidate that focuses on what's really important to them. Nobody wants to hear about what party's better or what party cares. It's really, you have to have a game plan, and you have to have a history of what you found to be important and how you want to treat people. And you're right. A lot of the Republican parties, they're much more organized. They definitely, even legislators all walk in line and vote in line, whereas the Democrats, we don't do that, which is part of the reason why I'm a Democrat. But they're more like almost trained to come out on election day and vote, and we've done a lot of effort to try to push Democrats or independents to come out and really listen to the differences. We've done this early voting, which I thought would help with Democrats, because they always say, it's harder to get them to the polls. But honestly, Republicans seem to have taken advantage of that, if not more, at least the same. So it's probably, I would say, multi-million-dollar question that my party's trying to figure out. But as someone, this is my 9th election, and I'm no expert, but I can just tell you that you really have to kind of get across the fact of being engaged with your constituents, of really taking taxpayer money serious, and really dedicating full time to your job to be there. And that's what I keep telling the other candidates. I said, just try to get people to realize that your goals are in line with them, and hopefully that will make the connection, and then people will make the effort to vote.
Let me ask you. Let me go to one of the things you mentioned with your daughter moving to Connecticut, which is housing. There is a shortage in the state of 800,000 housing units. And the governor Kathy Hochul, Democrat, came up with 2 proposals. One for accessory dwelling units. The other one was for coming up with a percentage of growth in housing, with an emphasis on transit-oriented development. That was opposed by both Democrats and Republicans in the area, and they said, leave it to us. But I was looking at the population of Nassau County. From 1950 to 1960, it virtually doubled from 672,000 to 1.3 million. Since then, it's only increased in 60 years. 60 years, it only increased 95,000. We're now at 1.3, and Nassau County is the 3rd highest percentage of single-family housing. So there's no place like Nassau and Suffolk in terms of lack of multifamily housing. What's your feeling on what should be done? Everyone says, leave it to us. The local officials are saying, leave it to us. But it's been left to them for 60 years, and they haven't come up with housing to grow. So what should be done?
Well, I did an op-ed, and I think your paper ran it, if I remember correctly, which I did feel that the governor should not come in with with one brush and tell local governments how many, apartments or whatever you want to call it needs to be built by, train stations. Because I just look at Port Washington. I mean, that is such a dense area. There's no way we can fit that type of change. But what I think should be done is, I think that they should have funding available, which is the other, like part two of what she's proposing a little bit. I agree with that more, to have the funding available to really help subsidize some of these projects that can be built in the proper way in the proper places. And I mean, I look around, Mineola's done this, Farmingdale's done it. Glen Cove has done a good amount, but maybe Glen Cove could have a little bit more, but I think it has to be subsidized funding in areas that can sustain this type of growth. Again, I believe in local government having the final say with zoning. I do. I just don't want to see the state come in and,
But if you look around the country, most states are now saying, well, we tried that, but it's kind of in the interest for all of us who live here, because our housing values have gone up by having a shortage of housing. Now, that means that our kids can't afford to move here, but we're doing pretty well. And what many states around the country, California, Massachusetts, I don't know about Connecticut, but they're going and saying, the only way we're going to be able to get more housing in an area is if the state comes in and permits things like accessory dwelling units and things like that.
Mm.
Do you really think, I mean, you're saying do that, you're saying use carrots.
Not really. I'm saying I don't really believe in that. I don't believe in that. I think though that what happens is builders come in, developers come in, they're not interested in building apartments for millennials. They're just not. There's no money in that. They want to build these condominiums that cost $850,000 each, and I get it. I know it's expensive to build. However, if the state could subsidize really high quality, right, like you said, near trains and near downtowns housing, I think that there are a number of areas that would take that opportunity, to do. You can't find a developer that comes in with a great proposal of millennial housing. They don't exist because there's no money in it. So I think that the best thing to do would be to give grants or federally fund or federally or state fund these housing projects that are designed. I mean, even our veterans, there's a lot of, there's seniors that need housing. There's all sorts of, it's not just the young people, it's across the board. And again, but I think it has to fit into a place where it makes sense. I mean, we're just talking about our water and everything, you can't overcrowd certain areas. So
you have a lot of developers saying the problem that they're facing is it's not zoned for multifamily, and it's like transit oriented. They don't want 14-story buildings. They're looking for maybe, although it's been done in Mineola by Old Country Road and the train station, but they're looking for, how about 2 or 3 stories above a retail in downtown areas. But we don't want to come in. Everyone says, yeah, we're in favor. We'll do it on a case-by-case basis. They don't want to do that because you're adding the expense and the uncertainty of making an application, and then you're going to go through in the inevitable community opposition.
Right.
Is there anything that can be done? And this is particularly true. Most of the developers, people who deal with downtown business districts, say, hey, we need to have, we're looking for that certainty so that we can build. And the downtown districts, for them to thrive, they need to have a population downtown. They can't rely on people driving in. They want people that are already living there that'll support the businesses below the
100%. But Steve, I get nervous when the state comes in and changes what the local governments have put in. And I don't think that having the state just say, okay, build a 12-story building in Seacliff is going to be the way to go. I really believe that if there's financial backing, those communities who want, like Glen Cove is a great example. We just did, I don't know if you know, but the Village Square, we just built, apartments down there. They're talking about knocking down another big development and rebuilding it with apartments upstairs. I think it's like 130 apartments upstairs. I mean, that's going to probably be happening in the next couple of years. Like, I think many different areas want that, and it's a great urban renewal, idea, and a lot of businesses would definitely support it. But again, I think providing the funding and possibly the know-how, which sounds silly, but certain builders that are really good at doing this type of project, like having them, be accessible through the state even, is the way to go. Coming in and saying everyone has to take, whatever, I forget how many units per municipality is really like not the way that I believe that we should go. I just think it's a poor, anytime another government comes in and really puts pressure on a local government, I think we have to be very careful with that. But again, I know what you're saying, that what's been proposed in the past is not working. But again, I don't think it's that. Maybe some zoning does have to be changed a little bit. But I think the real problem is it's finding the developers that are willing to build these types of places, because most of them are much more interested in the high end, waterfront.
We hear from them though that they don't want to build in a number of areas because it's just the approval process, the uncertainty, right. And it's not been zoned for them, so they won't even come in. They'll build elsewhere on Long Island. They'll build in New York City, but they won't come. They'll build in Queens, but they won't come here. Let me move on because you can spend an hour going about the housing.
Right.
Let's go for something very easy like reassessment.
I love your sarcasm. Go ahead. Oh gosh.
The Ed Mangano was county executive. He actually ran on the facts of fixing the dysfunctional assessment system. He then, in the next 8 years, had no reassessment, let the assessment department, go without a certified assessor. Laura Kern, and she said, now, Newsday in the interim had done a series, and that the lack of assessment is going to create this disparities, particularly when people are grieving their taxes. So those who grieve, they get their taxes cut down. Those who don't grieve, their taxes, they ended up overpaying. They pay for what wasn't done.
Right.
Laura Kern said that when they got to it under her assessment, it was going to be so high that it would have to be phased in over 5 years, the differences. She stopped after 2 and froze taxes. Now Bruce Blakeman came in. He said he was going to fix and undo what Curran did. Then he had Elaine Phillips do an audit. She said wrong numbers. He's frozen taxes. So we've had 2 reassessments, and it just younger people minority who tend to grieve less end up paying more because they didn't grieve, and others aren't. So what should be done? It hasn't been. Now we're in 8. There's been 12, 14 years.
Right.
There was a 2-part assessment. We know it's out of whack because everyone wins when you grieve. Most people win when you. I had a very modest proposal of paying for everyone to grieve, and then you'd actually have an accurate system.
Well, that's basically what the idea was, I thought. Right. So the role was frozen under Mangano. Laura Curran came in, and we really wanted to fix the assessment process, but it went about it the wrong way, in my opinion. And I went against my party with this because I agreed with her philosophy of fixing it, but they didn't do a reassessment. They did a reevaluation. So reassessment would be going like what you're just saying, grieving every house, looking at every house. We now have a lot of technology that can help us with that. We have drones. We have all this other stuff that we bought. But that's not what happened in the current reevaluation. What they did is they went and they took each school district and they did a neighborhood factor. So, okay, you live near the water, so your numbers are going to go up 5%, and you live near DPW, your numbers are going to go down 5%. However, in villages like Seacliff, I think they got the formula completely backwards because the homes on the water went down and the homes by DPW went up. So, which can happen in a reevaluation if a company's doing it. Supposedly they did it pretty quickly. So there were a lot of problems with the reevaluation. And I spoke with Laura Kern at that time. And I did not know it was not a reevaluation. It's just, it's not a reassessment. It's just a reevaluation. So there were so many problems with that neighborhood factor
So
that.
Going forward, what?
Okay. So going forward, I agree with you. I think that we need to do a real, true reassessment, which we can do. It would not be impossible. I voted for the firm that was supposed to do it, but I say we reassess everyone's house, which I really think we could do. However, to get even started on that, we don't even have an assessor right now. There's not even an acting assessor right now. There's really nobody. In fact, there's questions as to who is signing the rolls because you're really supposed to be a qualified assessor to sign the rolls. They have a job search out for it. Starting salary, I think, was like 100,000 or something, maybe 115, which I think is kind of low. I think we should really bump up the salary and really try to attract a good assessor that's really qualified. It's a complicated process. However, I also think in conjunction, we could start this reassessment, not a reevaluation, reassessment of every home to get the real number. The other thing, as we know, if you look at the campaign contributions, historically, all these tax grievance firms have donated mainly to Republicans. Not to say they haven't donated to Democrats, but mainly to Republicans. So Republicans come in, they freeze the roll, and then all of a sudden, all these, campaign contributions come in, and these companies make so much money. It's insane, in my opinion, how much money they make. I run tax grievance workshops, as do other legislators. This is something people can do on their own. You don't have to hire a company to do it. The fact that they get 50% of any rebate is really also exorbitant. I know that Kevin Thomas, the senator from South Shore, just submitted legislation, which I support, which would limit their income to 25%, the firms, which it's a start. It just, they shouldn't be getting 50%. So, and that's getting a lot of unhappy people, let me say that way. So it's a cycle. You freeze the roll, you have mass settlements, you get huge political contributions, and that's really what you're up against. So,
and you could do the value of every home in Nassau County, and you get the figure that is the correct figure.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be in favor of saying, okay,
100%,
regardless of what this means? Because some people, it's going to be big sticker shock because
right.
For the last 10 years, they may be underpaying their taxes and don't really don't recognize what the real cost of government is that they're enjoying. Would you be in favor of, once you get the right number, that's what you pay? Or would you say, okay, we're going to give you a certain amount of time to get a job? Even though
you're not going to like my answer, but I definitely support the reevaluation 100%. I do believe that having, I forget what the percentage was. I think it was 6% per year increase. Was that right? Is the maximum to give people a little bit of, some people live very close to the line, and you don't want to see all of a sudden people not be able to afford their homes. You want it to be brought up, but that's where I think number one, we'd have to see what the data shows, like how many homes you would be talking about that would see like an increase over 10%. and then maybe look at to see what percentage that is, and if those would need some type of phase in, but not a 10-year phase in, a more reasonable 3 to 5 year phase in, I would say. Because again, you don't want to blindside people with a huge increase at one. I don't believe in that either, because again, I know how many people are just barely making their mortgage payments. But I do
people know that because they didn't.
benefiting. I know.
Oh, they've been overpaying their taxes for 10 years now.
I know.
Those tend to be younger, less affluent people, and they're shouldering an unfair burden. What do you do for those folks in the interim?
Well, again, I think that we should see what the data shows. And listen, there's been a lot. I think that even the phase-in was determined that I don't even know if we can phase in that. I think it was questioned legally, and you could check this out. But I think that the only time that you can phase in an increase or a decrease is if there's structural change, not an assessment. So I think that came out after the Laura Curran phase in. So for us to do it again, now that that knowledge is out there, would probably be difficult to do unless there was some question as to the legality of what I heard about that. And again, I do think that people should pay with what they should. And I know some people have been underpaying for years, but I think first thing to do is get the roll correct, actual house by house, and see where we are with the numbers. I kind of have a feeling that, you got to remember also that whole idea that Newsday did, where they said that it was only minority communities that don't grieve. That came back to not be totally accurate either. Those
Right.
numbers didn't pan out either at the end. So you hear a lot of rumors with assessment. So I think we just have to get the facts and then figure out how to best handle it.
Let's go on to policing and crime. Do you know what the year-to-year crime statistics were for the month of
month of what?
September 2023 versus September 2022 in Nassau County?
Do I know the exact number? No.
Did you get any numbers? Because Nassau County, I think, has only put out statistics once this year, and that was 3 or 4 months ago. Unlike New York City, 3 days after the month end, they can give you a report of what the increase or decrease was in every category, and they give an answer for, they respond and say, well, we see this, so we're going to do that. Do you get those statistics? I got them a couple months ago. I can't remember. I'm not in my office, as I stated. I don't know the date of the last report we got. I know some numbers were up. I think it was like car break-ins. We went through the whole Cadillac converter thing. But then I think other numbers were down. I think like the murder number came down, nothing too crazy as far as changes, but I agree with you that it would be good to get the monthly numbers. Just as a matter of course, we have the highest, according to the county executive, the highest paid police force almost anywhere in the county, but we don't know if they're doing good or they're doing bad in terms of relative to statistics. Shouldn't county administrators have that information? Shouldn't the public?
Yeah, I would like to have a more like, as what do they say, live, data. I would like that. However, I can tell you there've been a couple times, like for instance, Flower Hill had a couple break-ins, and I went to their meeting, and we brought the information from the 6th precinct, and they were pretty spot on. Like they knew exactly how many, I don't know, everything, parking tickets to, red light count. They knew everything immediately, for that meeting. How many break-ins, how many, 911 calls. They have all that data. They have a pretty good GPS as to how many cars are there, so I was impressed with how much data they actually have. There's also there's a whole new thing that the county invested in with, it's at the police. I don't know if it's known, but it's at the police academy. There's a room that's quite impressive. And it's really all statistical data, and they're connected to the Ring camera companies and all sorts of different.
Why can't those numbers be available to the public?
Yeah.
And why?
Again, when I have an issue, I can get the data, but you're right. You're right. More of a monthly, I can request it. I'm ranking on public safety. I can request that. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. You're on the subject of public safety. The Vera Institute did a national study and found Nassau County tied for second lowest score for police transparency in the United States. The lowest ranked police department among the 94 cities and counties was Birmingham, Alabama.
Great.
Not necessarily known for its transparency in policing. And they were judged on data being accessible, usable, and meaningful. And there is, so number one, why is there no civilian review board? Why not a civilian review board to do campaigns? There was from 2016 to 2021, the county reported through internal investigations, 0 founded cases of false.
Right. Yep.
During that time, 30 people won court judgments against county police.
Right.
And paid out money for misconduct. How can that be?
Right. No, you have a point there. The best way to handle it, I don't know if it's having the community be the ones who come in and decide discipline and things. I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. But what I do think is you have legislators here, we're elected officials. We kind of have that oath of, but I think that you're absolutely right in the sense that the data has to be available without even asking for it. I have gotten excellent response when I've had to ask for it, but I don't always get it, let's say freely.
Can you really, in any field, can you really, based on these numbers, shouldn't somebody other than the police be judging the police?
Well, I think that honestly, that again, I believe that we should be looking at the statistics, and the legislators can do a good amount if we're, with the correct information. We are the ones who have to vote on those settlements. We have followed up with what happened with disciplinarian issues and things like that in the past. We do that quite regularly. But again, I think there's a couple issues. I think having the data is important. I think sometimes, the training, I think there's really been an improvement with various types of training with mental health. These are things we never talked about when I first became a legislator. Now there's a lot of improvement with all that.
But we have New York City, for instance, the law department every 6 months publishes a semi-annual report on misconduct matters against police, which includes the names of both parties, the police shield number, and the total payout if applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of transparency that exists around.
Right.
And you had only 3 county legislators,
right,
Democrats, all people of color.
Right.
who asked Letitia James to look after, to investigate misconduct. And so, you know,
So,
should
yeah.
there be an independent review to see what the cost of this is? What is the harm of transparency in publishing this? New York City does this as a rule.
I don't think that there's a question that having statistics should be definitely, we should definitely improve that an aspect of it. Do I believe in putting out the names and things like that? I don't. Not unless somebody is really found guilty. And honestly, like that's when I've seen it happen before. You know, that's when cases are referred to the DA's office, you know. So I don't think if someone is, look, anyone can challenge anyone in any business, including being an elected official. And, you know, before you really destroy someone's life, I think it's good to know that, you know, the facts have been found, and it's, you know, it's not just someone's opinion, or who knows sometimes what the motivation is when, you know, anyone can sue and anyone.
What if there is a payout? Shouldn't they at least know the name? The newspapers do this, and the courts release the names of the accused.
They are out there, yeah.
They're charged by,
you know, should it be more accessible? I'm sorry?
The names of people who are charged by the police are released, whether they're, you know, before they are found guilty.
You know what? For the most part, I think most of it is discussed, you know, after trial. I mean, of course, if there's an arrest, you know, maybe the names are released at that point. When it's an investigation, they usually don't release the names. You know, we're in a tough spot with all this. Number one, we can't even hire like detectives and people that really need, you know, we need to help keep crime low. So I think there has to be some level of due process with the police. We can't just say, okay, so-and-so put in a complaint and, you know, have the guy's name and address put out there. It's just like, who's going to do that job? Number two, I think having these cameras, the body cams, which was no easy task. Let me tell you, we fought for those for years, and they cost a lot of money. And we now have them. And I think in the last couple of years, it's been really interesting to have them. I think in some instances it backed up the police. In some instances it showed problems. But all in all, I think that was a huge step in the right direction. Do I want to see an outside force come in and you know, discipline our police? I don't think that's the answer. Do I want to see more transparency? Yes. I would like to see better reporting done. I know they have the statistics, but they're also a paramilitary group. Okay. And, you know, it's difficult. People, you want to be safe in your home. Safety is like the number one issue. Okay. You want to feel safe when your daughter's out and your kids are out. You know, you want to know that people are there to protect and all that. So, but sometimes that also comes with certain things that we need to kind of respect on with the police officers as well. You know, as far as the fact a lot of them live in Nassau County, they have kids, you know, and themselves, and they don't want retaliation for themselves doing the job. So it's a balance. And I kind of am under the belief that yes, data is important to be kept on top of. I don't like paying anything for these misconduct acts. I think I think the training really helps with that also. Okay. But I would keep it in-house at this point. I really think maybe with the legislature having more power with it, I could see that. But
you have been you've received the conservative line.
I have in the past, not now.
I have in the past. This year, all of the conservatives, all of the Republican candidates now have the conservative endorsement. Why the
Right.
change?
I don't know, but I can tell you that was like sort of one of the biggest surprises in my life when they came to me and told me that they wanted to endorse me. They wanted to do it to show, according to what I was told, and from them, to show that they wanted to be considered working with some people in government, working with both sides, not just the Republican side. When I spoke with them, they never once asked me about anything, any issue that I think would separate us, put it that way. And I never had to go against anything that I believe. So I think honestly, this was like a situation. My district is very close. I have 50-50 registration. I'm one of the only Democrats that have survived. I've been elected for 16 years, and right now North Hempstead is leaning Republican. Glen Cove is definitely leaning Republican. So from the way it was described to me, the chairman, Jay Jacobs, was approached and he said, okay, I have two districts that are very vulnerable, and one is mine and one was District 18. So the first I heard of it was when I got the call that they wanted to endorse me. So I think it was a strategic plan on behalf of Jay Jacobs to protect two vulnerable seats. But I never sought it, and I'm surprised that they endorsed me, to be honest, but they did. And
You got an endorsement there, they have a very conservative, they're against contraception.
Well, this is the thing. As a county legislator, I don't vote on anything that has to do with that. Like my job as a legislator is different than the state job. It's completely different. So, again, it wouldn't affect anything that I did as far as voting. They never asked me to compromise on anything. And it was like,
it was carrying their banner or going on their line.
Well, you know what? I ran on their line. I did run on their line to protect a Democratic seat. That's really how it was described to me. We saved two Democratic seats with that line. I win by a good amount. I win sometimes by 70% or more. But the way it was described to me in the party was, you're going to protect your seat, and we need a Democratic seat. I could have said no and ran with Laura and everybody, and I still would have won, but it would have been closer. This time I don't have it, and we'll see what happens. But again, the way it was described to me was, taking this is going to protect a Democratic seat, and that's what we want to do, is protect Democratic seats. So,
okay.
I know, looking back, I don't know. I mean, I could have gone against Jay again on that, but I felt that if I lost without it, and we lost another Democratic seat, and they're closer to a supermajority than they already are, I would have had a hard time explaining my decision.
How do you, another thing that Jay Jacobs, the county and the state Democratic, both,
not easy.
The cross endorsement of judges in Nassau County.
Yeah.
Judges are supposed to be up for election, but they're both cross endorsed. Joe Cairo's daughter was cross endorsed.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lakeman's wife has been endorsed. Isn't that a violation of it's supposed to be an election. We elect our judges. It's not supposed to be a pick of the party bosses. Are you?
I don't know if it's a violation. I really don't know if it's a violation of election law. I know my dad was a judge, and he had to run for criminal court, and he ran twice the first time he lost. I'm not 100%. I've heard a couple of different explanations. It's really a higher pay grade than I am. To be completely honest, I don't know what the inside agreements are. I am not, I've been around a long time, but I'm not privy to a lot that goes on in my in that degree of either my party or the other party. But I agree. I know I've read things that you've written before about this, and I understand what you're saying. Look, I think anytime you take away any rights, whether it's checks and balances with, legislators, for bonding especially, or the right of people voting, or the right of local governments governing, I think anytime you take those rights away, I think you're on a slippery slope. I don't support it in any realm. But again, they don't ask me about that, so I don't really know. But I think the way I think it was explained to me was pretty much that they're normally split, so we just split them, kind of thing. But again, I'm surprised that it happens as often as it does, and I'm a big supporter of people voting and having representation that way.
Okay. Congestion pricing.
Mm-hmm. State, that, right? You're talking to the county legislator.
Do you have any views on the plan to charge people for driving in the downtown district?
Do I have any views? It would not be official views because I'm a state county legislator. I mean, a county legislator, not a state official. I am a Manhattan born.
The legislators were opposing.
Yeah, I don't think, I think again, just my own personal opinion is I don't support it. I don't think it's the right way to go. It's kind of un-American, and as a Manhattan person, I don't like the idea.
You have to pay tolls to get into.
I know, exactly. If you need to raise the tolls a little, at least everybody does, right? No, I don't believe in it.
Okay.
But I had nothing to do with that one.
Pay the tolls at the Midtown Tunnel and the George Washington Bridge and the Rogsneck Bridge.
If you have to pay tolls, and look, if they need to continue improving their transit, okay, then do it. Maybe having all these cars gridlocked all day long is not the best thing for anybody or the environment or anything else, but they have to come up. I mean, you go to Spain or someplace like that, and you just look at Madrid, and the public transportation is amazing. I could see increasing public transportation, but the idea of finding someone who's for driving down the road doesn't sit well with me.
Let me ask you this: just the congestion in Nassau County.
That's a big problem.
The thing that I've editorialized on this. Having less cars on the road. I mean, it starts on exit 39. I live off Roslyn Road, and exit 39 in the morning, in the evening, actually starting there, going into the city, you're going to have traffic. And anyone driving in Nassau County during the day has these congested roadways. So is there anything to do other than that to reduce congestion on the roadways of Nassau County?
I'm trying not to be sarcastic in my response, but I don't think we need a casino to bring in another 20,000 people per day. Hempstead Turnpike and the Meadowbrook Parkway.
That was my next question. So
that was like one of the big reasons, quality of life with that. That was a big reason why I thought that with no public transportation there, I thought that was such an irresponsible idea. And, I've spoken to so many people, like traffic it's more than just time. It's stress, and it's dangerous, and it's wearing on our infrastructure. And to pass a 99-year lease on something that's going to bring 20,000 new residents, new cars a day with no traffic study, I don't know how that happened in Nassau County. But no, I think traffic is a real quality of life issue that, it takes me 45 minutes to get from Glen Cove to Mineola. It's insane. It's really nuts. So
any suggestions of what to do?
Other than thinking about ideas like casinos, but seriously, like really looking
there's very little public transportation that'll get you from.
None really. Yeah, no. But of course, I mean, it again goes back to just being responsible. I love the idea, honestly, of, if we are going to bring housing in, having them closer to public transportation. We have to fix, like, I live on the Oyster Bay line, which is kind of like back in the, day of, the cowboy and Indians almost, it's not even an electric line. And so we need to really improve, I believe, a number of the train lines, which we have done some, but it just goes back to getting people out of the idea of taking their car everywhere. And I think that the millennials are in tune with this idea. And, we have to move to that structure. These roads were not built for the amount of volume that they see today, like Robert Moses and all them, they did not, to see this buildup just from volume, like every day now on the Meadowbrook Parkway. That never used to happen. I was a Hofstra, commuter. I mean, I worked in that area for years, and I never remember being just slowed down on the Meadowbrook just for congestion. And now it's every time I go on the Meadowbrook, it's slowed down. So Long Island has a lot of issues, and we have to adapt, or we're going to really have problems. And I think we see that with the flooding, we see that with the traffic, we see it with the opioid issues that are going on, we see it with, with some crime that's happening lately. It's like we really need to decide what way we want to go in Nassau County. And I think the real thing to do is have a traffic study, at least for every development, not just on the town level, and not just, basics. It really has to be, Glen Cove, we did the RXR project, which isn't done, but just the volume there is just, it's amazing how all of a sudden it's taking me 3 lights to go through intersections that we never had a backup with, 10 years ago.
Let me ask you, you were opposed to the Sands Las Vegas lease with the county. And that had to do with congestion or other things?
Oh God, no, it was so many reasons. It's the 3rd time I voted against a casino in Nassau County. I voted when it was against it in Elmont. I voted against it in Westbury, and it was a no-brainer when I heard that that's what they really were thinking of doing. I had voted for the project before that, RXR. They really had a good project, in my opinion. They were going to try to, they brought in Sloan Kettering. They were going to, this Langone deal. They were going to really try to reach out for medic companies, IT companies, green energy companies. Like, we really had, in my opinion, a good plan to attract jobs that millennials would want, not just making beds in a hotel. No offense to anyone who makes beds in a hotel, but making $49,000 a year average salary with the Sands is not going to keep people on Long Island. So it was so many reasons. Traffic was one. The fact, there's a number of things that all those schools around there, Hofstra, Kellenberg, Nassau Community College. I understand gambling is legal now, but do I think it's a good idea for the county to almost promote it? I don't. So that was number 2. Number 3, the addiction issues are so strong. I worry about bringing in another form of addiction. Some people can handle gambling, a lot of people can't. Just like some people can handle marijuana, a lot of people can't. But for us to be pushing another addiction right now, even if you can gamble on your phone, fine. But this is a place to go and do it that the county's supporting. So the other thing is, I don't think they didn't do a traffic study. They didn't do a real public safety impact. They gave, I think it was 1.3 million or something for the police, which sounds like a lot of money. Our police budget is 600 million. So it came out to 0.24% of 1% that they're going to be giving us for to help with the increased cost in public safety. I cannot believe that overtime is going to be less than 1% because of a casino, the increase. So there were so many reasons why. And I was the only one, and I took some hits on that from the labor unions and a few other unions. But I have to say, I have received more support for that vote than anything I've ever done as a legislator. I've had people from all different, parts of the county take the effort to send emails to thank me and things like that. So I vote with my conscience, and that's what I did with that. And when I met with the unions, I said, I know we're going to break up over this. I said, we've had a long, good relationship for 16 years, but I know I'm losing you in this vote. But I was asked what it would take for me to vote for the project. And I said, well, you see that little circle there, that little casino, that has to go. And then I would probably be interested a little bit more in your project. And of course that wouldn't happen. Another main reason why I voted no is if we don't have the license yet. If we don't get the license, then the project doesn't have to come back to the county legislature. It is only up to the county executive as to what goes in to one of our most valuable pieces of property. So again, there you are eliminating a branch of government, and I have a real problem with that.
One final question, one second to last question. You've been involved with opioids and fentanyl in the area. Where is that? How would you say that? What has been the focus, and what needs to be done? And what do you see yourself doing going forward?
Yeah, I'm a mom. That's like my number one thing that I'm proud of. And I've been very lucky that my kids have been spared this. Our family's been spared this, but it's affected a number of people that are very near and dear to me. And I have lived through it for years with some of these parents. And it's really such a nightmare. But so two things. One, we have, the pharmaceutical companies lost lawsuits where it was determined that they knew of the addiction, they were much more aware of the concern of addiction than they let on and all this other stuff. So anyway, we won a good settlement. We already have $70 million was given to the county, and we're expecting over another $30 million from CVS shortly. This money was put into an account. It can only be used to help opioid addiction, of drug addiction. So it can't be earmarked for anything else. And out of that 70 million, only 2.5 million has been distributed in the last 2 years. It's driving me crazy too. Their kids really not doing well. And part of the reason, I've been with families where in 2 a.m, somebody decides they want help, and I can't get them a bed at 2 a.m. We have a real lack of beds on Long Island.
Why is that money not being spent?
I just sent you another op-ed on it. It's probably in your inbox. It's driving me crazy. I don't know. They said they were going to give out 15 million in 22. They did not. That was September of 22. That has never given out. And these were to groups that are already established and that we've been working with for so long, that are reputable. So they haven't given out the money from 2022 or 2023. And here we are in October of 2023. So they're already 30 million behind what they said they were going to do, which is give it to the groups that we reference. But what I would like to see, and I would love to really see this happen, we have a hospital, Nassau County Medical Center on Hempstead Turnpike, which is centrally located, which has, at least from what I've been told, at least 3 floors that are empty. We have, let's say we have close to 70 million. Even if we have probably, with the new settlement, 50 to 60 million that has not been allocated. We could make that building the center of opioid rehabilitation. It doesn't mean that we even have to buy expensive equipment. It's really just providing room for treatment. Beds. We could get enough beds there, and we could really help a hospital that's in close to financial ruin. So to me, it is such a no-brainer to take that money and give it to the hospital for these programs. A thing I'd like to see there too is not only have an increase in beds and have availability for anybody who wants help, but to be able to subsidize the treatment. Because if you look at an addict who's addicted to opioids, you can actually see on an MRI that their receptors in their brain are open more so than you and I. And once you take them off drugs, it takes approximately 3 months for the receptors to go back to where they would be if they weren't on drugs. Most insurance companies only pay for 28 days. So by the time people get out of rehab, their receptors are still wide open, which means they are craving those drugs, they need those drugs, and it's going to take a good amount of drugs for them to get high again. So I would love to see a program that has enough beds and also can keep people, help subsidize it for 3 months rather than 28 days. So that's a perfect solution to a hospital that's financially, although Buterman is on it, it's financially in a lot of trouble.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for taking your time. I have one final question for you, which is, why should the people of your district vote for you again to be their?
Okay, well, number one, I would just like to say I really love my job, and it takes a little while to really understand the ins and outs of being an elected and understanding how how to represent what your community needs, how to get funding for projects. So I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of it at this point. And I'd like to see some projects that I'm in the middle of come to completion. Am I going to be one of those people that tries to stay forever? Absolutely not. I will absolutely hand this off to the next person one day. But at this point, I do feel that I serve my community well. I usually win by a lot more than just the Democratic, registered voters. And I really put a lot of time into it. This is my only job. I don't have my other job anymore. And I dedicate 100%. It takes a lot to do it the right way. I'm out 5 to 6 nights a week, and it's really a 7-day-a-week process. And you can't, in my opinion, I don't think you can do it for too long, but I would like to continue for a little bit longer. How's that?
I really appreciate you taking this to let everybody know. I want to thank again our sponsor, Northwell Health. A recording of our discussion will be found on the Island 360, our website, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. And a story about today's interview will appear in next week's paper, not actually the one after, since I think there might be a lot of information that we want to follow up on. But I want to thank you again for for Nassau County Legislator Delia DeRiggi-Whitton for sitting down with us and sharing her views. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. It was my pleasure.